What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 23 My Team career mode, and we are here for round number 18 of season 7 of our Jaguar racing career, and it is time for the Qatar Grand Prix. I bet you guys have been looking forward to this one of the most chaotic races on the Formula 1 calendar on this year's game. It feels like a sprint race as well, so 2 opportunities for us to potentially score points. It's going to be an interesting one. I'm very much looking forward to it, especially after last season, when you may remember, if you watched that video, that we had a victory in both the sprint and the race. We did the double that weekend, and it was a race that massively contributed towards us wrapping up the Drivers' Championship. As you can see, we had a DNF in Japan last time out, and we're currently hitting a pretty poor run of form. Only 1 points finish in our last 3 entries in Formula 1, and with only 6 races left to go, we really need to start hitting some good form very quickly, because George Russell is currently 16 points ahead of us in the Drivers' Championship, which, with only 6 races to go, even one more bad race for me could spell the end of my championship hopes, unless I get very, very lucky. You know, we've been struggling with reliability this season. 5 DNFs so far. It really does not seem like the Ferrari engine was the play. I thought maybe we would be able to pull a bit of a blinder, because they seemed to be the most reliable and the most powerful engine at the start of the season. But I don't even know if that's true anymore, honestly. I think maybe we made a mistake diverting away from, you know, the Mercedes that we sort of typically have used over the course of the career. But you know, it is what it is, and hopefully we'll just be able to round out the season without too many more reliability woes before things close down. For those of you who are interested, those of you who've maybe been watching me for a long time, this is video number 161 in this series, which interestingly is the same number of videos I made on F1 22. So the next video that you see in this series will officially be the longest, it will mark the longest series we've done on this channel. So yeah, something that is perhaps just, you know, a little bit of a neat thing you might be interested in. Of course, that was practice. I just kind of didn't really acknowledge that, but we did actually go fastest in practice. That made me quite optimistic, but of course that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have the pace to qualify on pole position. We're still going to have to put in some good laps here as we make our way into Q1, come around the final corner. We're on a fresh set of soft compound tyres. But yes, yeah, it will now be the longest series I've done on this channel. It will be stretching to, I mean, let's think, if there's 6 more videos plus the recap video that I'll probably do at the end of the series, it'll be 167 videos on this year's game. So yeah, it is a pretty remarkable number, to be honest. I don't know if I really thought that I would end up making this many when I started doing the F1 23 series all the way back last June, but yeah, there we go. We're currently on our second flying lap now. As we cross the line, it is a 1:18.4 here in Q2, and that is going to be good enough to put us P2, sees us through to Q2 with no real problems. I think I said here in Q2, I meant in Q1 obviously, but yeah, both myself and Leclerc make it through either way in P2 and P5 respectively. And then knocked out here was Perez, Joe, Hauger, De Vries, Pourchaire and Stroll. Pretty par for the course, I would say. Hauger, I'm sure, will be a little bit disappointed, continually disappointed, considering, you know, before he was kind of looking like he was the guy who might be sort of taking the fight to the championship this season, along with myself and Russell and Ocon and all these other guys that were getting themselves involved. But, you know, he's kind of tailed off in recent races. It's more been Sargent for Aston Martin, who's been a little bit better. We do a 1:18.7 on our banker lap on a used set of soft compound tyres, and now we're going to have one more run here in Q2 to hopefully do a good run on a fresh set of soft compound tyres, see what kind of time we can do. We're up by 5 tenths at the moment, but we were already in P2, so it wouldn't have been the end of the world, even if you know, we hadn't improved on this run. But you know, we're still going to be improving by quite a lot. We're into the 1:18.1s there by the looks of things, and that will be good enough to see us through to Q3 and P1. So yeah, we're looking very, very hot right now, and I'm hoping that, you know, P2, P1, hopefully we'll be able to get a pole position in Q3 as well. Both Red Bulls making it through, Norris making it through, all the people particularly close to me in the championship have made it through. But it is Gasly doing Verstappen, Vesti, Leclerc and Magnussen knocked out here in Q2. Magnussen, perhaps probably the most surprising name of the bunch. Verstappen not typically doing too well throughout this season in particular, but yeah, Leclerc, the guy who's been getting himself involved back in the championship fight in recent races, he's going to have a bit of a tall order today to try and get involved, I reckon, but we will see what he's capable of doing. It is a 1:18.6 on our banker here in Q3, which means now all we have to do is try and deliver as strong a lap as we possibly can on the fresh soft compound tyres we're going to go on to for our final flying lap. And you can see as we make our way into the final sector of the lap, we're already 5/10 up as we're coming through the final few corners, and you would imagine that with slightly grippier tyres we should be able to take these slightly faster than we did before. You can see we're making marginal gains the whole time, and yeah, I mean, all this these fractional gains are adding up to what is going to end up being a big time save here. We could potentially be on course for a 1:17. That would be pretty special if I was able to pull that off. I think we're going to be right on the cusp right now, and as we cross the line it looks like that was into the 1:17s, but one thing's for certain, that is fast enough for pole position, and we will be starting from P1 come race day tomorrow.
With qualifying finished, it's time to remind ourselves of our top three: Robinson, Russell and Oscar Piastri. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
And once again, it will be myself and George Russell, the two championship protagonists, you would have to say at this point, starting on the front row alongside one another for the sprint tomorrow. It is going to be an absolutely epic battle to see which one of us can win out. But yeah, it's not going to be easy, what with tyre wear and whatnot. We're going to have to see what we can do as we get into the Qatar Grand Prix sprint.
Welcome to today's sprint. This is shaping up to be another fantastic weekend. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. Robinson lines up on pole position, just ahead of George Russell, who starts this event from P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Oscar Piastri, Ocon, Albon, Liam Lawson, Fittipaldi, Norris, Sargent, Tsunoda, Gasly, Doohan, Verstappen, Vesti, Leclerc, Magnussen, Perez, Joe, Hauger, De Vries, Teo Porcher, and Lance Stroll brings the grid to a close. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We will soon find out. Anthony Davidson is here once again for today's Grand Prix. Joined once again by former Formula One driver Anthony Davidson, and they've had a lot of on-track incidents recently that could leave them low on confidence.
Certainly confidence is an important factor, and every time you're involved in an incident, it's not just the car you damage, but that confidence as well. But all the top racing drivers are able to tune that out when the race gets underway and focus on the job at hand.
We need a good result today if we want to catch Russell in the Drivers' Championship.
Well, I will do my best to deliver a good result. Obviously, we had 2 victories in 2 races here last season, but I think it is going to be a little bit harder.
Right,
we're on a slightly higher difficulty than we were on at that point. I think we're currently running on 97, but I could be wrong about that. Yeah, but I think the difficulty at the moment is currently 97, which is a few points higher than it was this time last year. So yeah, I'm pretty optimistic that we'll be able to deliver a decent race, but I don't know if it will quite be good enough for 2 victories here. If we can even get 1, I'll be pretty happy with that. The tyre wear is usually pretty savage around this track, so we will see whether we can make the best of the situation. We actually didn't have too bad tyre wear for once in practice, but we will see whether that translates into the race or not as the lights come on. And the lights go out, and we've had a good getaway here compared to George Russell. It seems that he was a bit slow off the line on those soft compound tyres, but he will be coming back towards us on the run into turn 1. Not quite close enough on this occasion though. Fittipaldi looks like he's had a good start, already up to P4 as well, jumping Albon and a few of the other cars who are starting inside the top 5. Russell and Piastri have held on to 2nd and 3rd by the looks of things, and now we're going to have George Russell challenging us up the inside through this next sequence of corners, but he's not quite close enough to try and make the move. Or is he? Is he going to try and hang it around the outside of this next corner? No, he's not. George Russell will have to stay in P2 for the time being, but I can see that the setup is working the same way it was last season, where through the corners I'm looking pretty good compared to the rest of the cars, but it is on the straights that I'm really going to be let down. So I wouldn't be surprised if George Russell does go for a bit of a move on us here. I'm going to burn a little bit of battery, but I won't be able to burn a lot on the run down to the first corner. And you can see we're being swarmed by cars here. George Russell goes into the side of Piastri there. I think he locked up or something like that, and that has allowed Enzo Fittipaldi to make up 3 positions in the space of 1 corner. He's overtaken us and also Russell and Piastri, who crashed into each other, and there is a virtual safety car because that damage was enough to cause Oscar Piastri to retire from the session. So as things stand, it is Fittipaldi from me, from Russell, and well, this could be a chance potentially for Enzo Fittipaldi to win his first competitive session in Formula 1. I feel like he really has deserved it on a few occasions already so far in you know, especially even in this season, but also in previous seasons. But we are going to try and attack him round the outside in the first few corners after the VSC restart, but he was just a little bit too strong on those soft compound tyres. We've got time though to wait for the soft compound tyres to just go off a little bit, and then maybe we can try and mount a bit of a challenge on him as we have a look once again. Not quite close enough on the inside, but maybe we can go for the switchback of dreams that we went for so many times in last year's race, and we're going to try and send it around the outside of him. This time we don't go as deep as we went last time, and that is going to be the overtake made up into P1. But Fittipaldi coming back at us, he's going to try and dive up the inside. We're going to try and go around the outside once again, and that is us holding on to P1 for the time being. Enzo Fittipaldi will have to settle in for P2. Hopefully he'll be able to keep George Russell behind. I desperately do want Fittipaldi to do well, but you can see as we make our way towards the end of sprint lap 7 and on the way to lap number 8 that Fittipaldi is all the way down in P5 now, and Albon and Russell are putting a bit of pressure on me here. Alex Albon is not too far behind. You can see he was very, very close to making the overtake on that occasion. I'm sure that we will probably see more attempts at overtaking from him as the rest of the race goes on, and as we make our way onto the end of sprint lap 8 and onto lap number 9. He's a bit closer than he was on the previous lap. Is this going to be close enough for him to go for the move? You can see he's very far ahead by the time we get to the corner actually, but can we pull it off once again? The switchback of dreams. Looks like we've maybe just kept the tyre in there close enough to try and hold it off around the outside of Albon. I don't know how we stayed in that fight, but we did, and we're going to hold on to P1 with just 1.5 laps remaining in this race. Will we be able to keep Albon at bay for the final few moments of the race? As we switch to the replay camera here, we're going to be having a look. I think this is Logan Sargent, who is retiring from the race. A real shame for him. I think he was running in the points at this stage as well, or at least you know, right around the edges of the points. So very disappointing for Logan Sargent there. He will be out of the race, and well, that's probably his chances of winning the championship, if they were even still alive at this point. They're definitely not anymore. You know, it's just going to be too big a deficit, I think, for him to overcome with just 5 races left. And yeah, we're going to now make our way round the final few corners in Sector 3 of the final lap. And Alex Albon is pretty close to us, so we could see a bit of a challenge from him potentially. Is he going to go up the inside into the final corner? No, he's not. But he will have the DRS down the final straight. Will he be close enough to close us down? 4 tenths is the gap. It's coming down rapidly. Less than 2 tenths, less than 1 tenth. And we just, I think, beat him to the line there. That was super close. I want to see what that gap was, because that was very, very close. But we have taken the sprint victory here. There's only 6 points for Russell, who only comes home in P3 as well. So, yeah, we catch him slightly in the championship off the back of the sprint.
So let's have a look then at the drivers' standings. It was not the best weekend for our championship leader, and their advantage at the top has been reduced. The grid is set then, so that just leaves the race itself. Join us tomorrow, where we'll be live with all the action, and until then, goodbye. Welcome back to Qatar. We had a year off due to a small footballing tournament in 2022, but it's back to Formula 1 right now. Losail International was built in 2004, 3.3 miles, 16 turns with just 1 DRS zone, but it's a long straight, and there's plenty of high-speed overtaking opportunities through the corners. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Robinson lines up on pole position, just edging out Alex Albon, who will start from P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Norris, Fittipaldi, Ocon, Liam Lawson, Leclerc, Gasly, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Verstappen, Perez, Doohan, Vesti, Hauger, De Vries, Joe, Teo Porcher, Stroll, Oscar Piastri, and Logan Sargent. And now it's time to head down to the track. With me today, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Let's talk about Robinson. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
It's been a really solid year so far. There have been some incredible standout performances, but what's really impressed me has been the consistency. With this kind of form, I'm expecting another great race today.
I think it's really nice that he's talked about my consistency there as they popped up a graphic of me scoring 8 points from the last 3 races. That really shows that the voice lines match up with what's going on in the game. I'm hoping that they are potentially, supposedly improving that for next year's game. I don't know whether that will actually end up being the case or not, but I have to say that is something that has really bugged me as someone who's done nearly 160 races in career mode this game cycle. It's bugged me a fair amount having to listen to just completely wildly wrong and inappropriate voice lines on many occasions. So if we can have that phased out in F124, then that would be pretty nice. But we will see whether we can get another good result here in Qatar as the lights come on. And the lights go out, and once again I think we've had a good getaway here. We're on the soft compound tyres starting along with everyone else, and we're going to be switching over to the mediums on lap number 12. It is going to be interesting to see whether the tyres can hold out that long, because I'm not 100% optimistic that is in fact going to be the case. The softs here typically don't last all too long for me. If I remember correctly, in Season 1 when we raced around here, I had to box off of the softs after about 7 or 8 laps. Obviously we've had more tyre wear upgrades since then, but these softs definitely are not going to be at their best, and even according to the game's estimations, they can only last for 16 laps. My tyre wear factor is 1.4 or something, I think, so I reckon the softs for me will probably be able to last whatever a third of 16 is, about 5. They'll be able to last about 4 or 5 laps less than what it's suggesting, so probably about 12 or maybe 13 at a push, I reckon, would be the absolute maximum that I'll be able to extract from the tyres here today. We'll see. However, at the moment we're going pretty well. We're holding off Russell behind without any real hiccups, but we do go off the track briefly there. We have to be careful not to do that too many times, otherwise it will be a track limits penalty for us. That's the last thing we want to happen, especially when we have a real opportunity to score good points here from the position we're in. Leclerc as well, actually, from P15 in qualifying. He's come through the sprint, scored 1 point in the sprint, and now he's already up to P5 in the start of this race as well, although he is coming under pressure from Lando Norris behind. So we'll see who can win out in that battle. But yeah, Leclerc having an absolutely remarkable Qatar Grand Prix so far, Grand Prix weekend, I suppose. We came under a bit of pressure from George Russell on the previous lap, but on this lap it seems like he's actually going to be looking to make the move stick. We make a bit of contact there. He almost shoves me off the track, but fortunately we managed to hold on and stay on the track. Stay in P1, but I think right now, looking at what's going on, it is only going to be a matter of time before George Russell makes the move on me. He looked like he was going to go for one up the inside through this sequence of corners, couldn't quite do it. And you may have also heard there that Esteban Ocon has an issue, so that's maybe going to promote Charles Leclerc up one more position here, up into P4, and he's having a pretty good time of things right now, is my teammate. Maybe he can get himself on the podium if he can continue this level of form. George Russell attacked us into the final corner, and with the DRS it's going to be fairly trivial for Russell, not only for him but also for Alex Albon on the outside. I thought about covering him off on the outside, but by the time I was thinking about moving there, I realised it would have been too late and it would have been an illegal move. Ocon is out of the race. Whatever issue it was that was going on with his car, clearly it was not something that they looked like they could fix, and so that is going to be the end of his race. And we'll have a look here. We can see, yep, that is him pulling over to the side of the road. And now let's have a look at what's going on lap 5 between myself and Charles Leclerc. This is, I believe. He's going to try and look for the move on me up into the podium positions. He's actually pulled it off as well. Charles Leclerc, I'm quite surprised by this. I didn't think that he would be able to make up the positions quite as rapidly as he has, but he's really, really impressed me here this weekend so far, and who knows, maybe he'll even be able to show the pace to go on and beat Albon and Russell as well. However, we are just going backwards and backwards at the moment. That is now Lando Norris that's overtaken us as well, and we have fallen down into P5. So at the rate we're going, we might be lucky to score some points here, and eventually I have to bite the bullet and come into the pit lane as our front left is on 67% on these soft compound tyres. It's 1 lap earlier than was initially planned, and not only that, but I'm also doing an emergency stop onto hards because I don't think that the mediums will get us to the end of the race. 18 laps just feels like too much for a tyre compound that the game has estimated last 21 laps. With the tyre wear factor we've shown around here, I really just don't see how a 21 lap tyre is going to do 18 laps for me. I would need to solve my tyre wear woes around this track pretty sharpish if we were going to have any chance of being able to do that. So we come out of the pit lane in P20, only poor share of the remaining drivers behind us, but there is plenty of time to catch up with the cars in front and maybe pull off a few undercuts as well even, who knows, as we make our way round onto the end of lap number 12. We're going to be starting lap 13 in just a second. Lando Norris is in the pit lane, and you can see that we are definitely going to be undercutting him by a number of seconds by the looks of things. So with the rest of the cars that were in front of me, the likes of Albon, Leclerc and Russell all staying out, I'd say there's a pretty good opportunity for us to pull off an undercut to maybe get ourselves into the lead of the Qatar Grand Prix, which, given that we boxed from P5, would be pretty awesome. You know, obviously we're going to have to hold on to the lead for a number of laps afterwards as we get past Sergio Perez, who was pootling around at the back of the grid there. We will have to hold on to the positions. That may be harder than expected. As you can see, Charles Leclerc coming into the pit lane there. Around the final corner, let's see what is the gap going to be like with Albon, Leclerc, Russell, all of these guys. I think they're just exiting the pits now. We're going to be taking the lead of the Qatar Grand Prix. A hell of an undercut from myself, and that is just further proof that the undercut meta in F123 is absolutely elite. I wonder if it will be the same deal in F124 or not, as we eventually do manage to get past Fittipaldi and Hauger as they come into the pit lane as well, and that is us going to be reclaiming the lead on track now. Obviously it was the net lead of the race before as well, but yeah, it doesn't last very long, however, because as we make our way towards the end of lap 16, you can see that George Russell, Alex Albon and even Charles Leclerc to an extent are getting pretty close to me here. George Russell making the overtake. This time we do defend the outside from Alex Albon, and that might be the only thing that has ended up getting us to hold on to P2 here. Otherwise it might have been another 2 positions lost to Russell and Albon in the space of 1 corner like we had earlier on in the race. However, I don't know how long we'll be able to keep Albon behind, even with the DRS. He seemed pretty imperious in a straight line compared to us with that Mercedes power unit. Here he comes up the inside. We're going to try and hold on to the position if we can. We are going to hold on around the outside of Alex Albon, and with that superior downforce we're running, we do manage to keep him at bay. But for how much longer is the question? How much longer will Alex Albon bear to stand behind me before he eventually decides, yes, I have to try and make this overtake? Well, it might be a bit longer, because unfortunately he got boxed in by the 2 Jaguars there as Leclerc makes his way up from P4 to P2 on that lap. And with no DRS on this lap, actually, it is going to be even harder now to stay with Charles Leclerc, and eventually Alex Albon does make the move, pushes us down into P4. However, with 8 laps to go, I'd say we've got a good opportunity to just stay in this position now. With a virtual safety car called as well, that is going to reduce the amount of time that the cars behind are going to be able to catch up with us. So yeah, I think that we could easily stay in P4. It wouldn't be the best result, especially considering Russell is winning the race, or I mean maybe he's not, right? Because Leclerc could still catch him up. There's still 7.5 laps to go as the VSC comes to an end. I'm not sure what this was even for. I didn't see anyone getting any damage or anything like that, but maybe somebody did. I don't know. Yeah, we can try now to try and stay with Albon and Leclerc as much as possible, not lose too many positions, try and limit the damage that George Russell will do to us. And well, I've actually managed to stay with them a lot better than I thought I had. I've actually got pretty good pace compared to these two in front of me now. So I'm wondering whether the medium tyres starting to go off a little bit, maybe the hards starting to come back into play, and whether we'll be able to maybe overtake these guys. And you can see I was so close to Albon through this corner, I just decided, well, screw it, I'm going to go up the inside of him. And on the very following lap, I was right on the tail of Charles Leclerc as well. So yeah, suddenly we're looking like one of the fastest people on track on these hard compound tyres. We are pulling away from the cars behind, closing down the cars in front. Before I knew it, I was suddenly staring down the barrel of at least P2 here, diving up the inside now of my teammate Charles Leclerc. We do make the overtake into the same corner we got Albon in the previous lap. But yeah, not only was I looking good for P2 here, but actually there was a chance here, if I can close this gap to George Russell in front, we might just be able to bag a race win here today. So yeah, this was looking pretty good for us. You know, the hard compound tyres were working well for us, and I was thinking to myself, I guess their tyres must just really be going off at this stage of the race. However, I was brought kind of crashing back down to earth when I actually went and checked the tyre wear, and you can see we are at 60% on the front left now, with 5 laps to go in this race. Am I going to be able to hold on to that? If you think about it, you know, we've done 14 laps on them already, so that is just over, what, I'm trying to think, 4% tyre wear per lap. That doesn't bode well. That suggests we're going to be on about 80% by the end of this race. And you can see as we make our way towards the end of lap 27, the start of lap 28, we are getting dangerously close to puncture territory on those front tyres. If we bring those tyres above 75%, every single percent we increase the tyres by after that point increases the likelihood that the tyres are going to puncture. Surely we can't make it to the end of this race. Surely we're not going to be able to keep the tyres from puncturing for 2 laps on this level of tyre wear. We make our way through lap 28, and despite all this, despite the fact that the tyres are as worn as they are, somehow I'm still keeping Leclerc and Albon at bay, so I guess their tyres must be pretty worn out as well. Typically, I've noticed that the AI doesn't really experience tyre wear in quite the same way that the player car does. But as we make our way onto lap 29 now, we're onto the final lap of the race. 79% on the front left, and we're still looking pretty good in this race. So yeah, only a handful of corners left to go now, and we might actually be able to do this. We're at 81% as we make it into this absolute hell segment of fast right-handers. You can see I am not going particularly fast through here anymore at all, having to you know, lift off the engine a little bit to make sure that we don't go over the track, because if we do, we'll get a track limits warning. Here comes Charles Leclerc around the outside of us, and we've got a puncture on the front right tyre now. We just about made it round the final corner before we experienced the puncture, but in doing so, we've actually held up Charles Leclerc there as well. That's allowed Albon to get back past him, and we are going to have to take P4 in this race. We lose a couple positions at the death of the race with this puncture. There won't be much rubber to pick up by the looks of things, but you know, a P4 is what we were looking at before we suddenly started going on that tear at the end of the race. If it hadn't been for the tyre wear, who knows what we might have been able to do today.
Under the floodlights of Losail, a victory to savour. They're heading to the top step. Tell me, Anne, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
Well, they certainly stood out as a drive with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
Red Bull are our winners today after showcasing some incredible driving. There's been a huge push from them lately to stay competitive with the other teams, and they're certainly proving themselves.
Well, things just continue to get very, very frustrating for us as George Russell continues the good run of form he's been on. You know, he was P1 in the last race as well, P4 in Singapore when we could only get P6. I think he got the win in Monza as well, possibly, when we failed to score. So, yeah, George Russell just, you know, he is delivering result after result. I'm happy to see Charles Leclerc up there. That would be good for our Constructors' Championship fight, if that's even still on at this point. But, yeah, disappointing to see Russell in P1.
Let's see what effect this result has had on the drivers' standings. That's a positive result for George Russell, who further solidifies his position at the top of the standings. Some amazing talent out there on track today, but Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
There's a few contenders, but George Russell definitely stood out, I think. A really solid drive from him today, and one I'm sure the fans enjoyed.
It's time to check out the Constructors' standings. The lead at the top comes down after a strong weekend from the challenging pack. Been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula One action. I can't wait to see what's next.
Well, it is a tale of two championships in this Qatar Grand Prix, really, because the Drivers' Championship, we have lost ground to George Russell. We now sit 27 points behind him, which is, you know, not really the kind of result that we would want. However, in the Constructors' Championship, we have made up a tiny bit of ground on the Red Bulls due to Esteban Ocon having a somewhat difficult race. You know, he had that DNF, of course, very early on, which set us up nicely to score double points quite high up in the race, and also, of course, I think all all 4 of us, both Red Bull drivers, both Jaguar drivers, got points in the sprint as well. I think actually the teams both got 9 points. So yeah, I think we outscored Red Bull by 1 or 2 points here today, with a P3 and P4, and Russell only, being the only scorer for Red Bull, getting the P1. But yeah, in the Drivers' Championship, with just 5 races to go now, we need to start outperforming George Russell, and we need to start, next race in Texas. It needs to be then. It's a sprint race, 2 opportunities to close him down, but it will be the last sprint race of the season, of course. The last sprint race we do in F1 23, with only 4 races left to go after that. It will be Mexico, Portugal, Vegas, and Abu Dhabi. None of those tracks are, absolute strongholds for me. Yes, I've delivered good results at some of those tracks in the past, but, George Russell, when he's motivated, fighting for a championship, leading the World Championship, I'm sure that he will be delivering some of his strongest performances there as well. So, yeah, it needs to be all hands on deck from this point onwards. I can't really have another poor race. I think if we have another mechanical failure, we can say that the championship is basically as good as over at that point, especially if George Russell goes on to have a good result in that race. In terms of the Constructors' Championship, how many more DNFs are Red Bull going to have this season? Probably not very many, so I'm going to need Charles Leclerc to be delivering week in, week out from now on. This weekend, I can't fault him too much because, yes, even though he had a poor qualifying, he more than made up for it. He probably would have had P2 if it hadn't been for me holding him up with that puncture at the very end of the race. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how he drove this weekend. To get on the podium is pretty special from the position that he started in, to be perfectly honest with you. And yeah, with respect to how we performed today, I think we could have easily, it could have been P2 and P3 for the team ultimately. I think if I hadn't had that puncture, I think it would have been, maybe Leclerc P2, myself P3, or maybe myself P2, Leclerc P3. Who knows? But either way, I do think that that puncture kind of really harmed the amount of points we ended up scoring. So yeah, really disappointing, but ultimately it was my fault. I probably would have avoided that had I just boxed 1 lap later than I did, and the softs probably would have lasted that long as well. So yeah, it is frustrating, but it is what it is. Like I said, the next race is going to be Texas. 2 chances to score with a sprint race going on as well, so hopefully we can deliver on a good result there. But that is going to be it for this video. So if you enjoyed, please make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.